All right, I'm going to be using this as, actually, I got to hit record here. Let me do that, start recording. I'm going to be using this to make kind of a demo and explanation manual for Intuition Compressor. So I'm going to be cutting this up. First thing I want to do is do the signal flow. And I'm not 1,000% sure on a couple of these parts, so we're going to draw this out and figure this out together. So let me see if I can figure out how to use this whiteboard. First of all, let me go to my. If you guys know how to use these Intuos things, I could use some help because I sure don't know. Welcome. Tablet properties. Okay. So I want application. Bing. There we go. I just want the right screen. Do I change this portion? No, not. I want to use the full tablet, but I only want it to go to one screen. Monitor one. There we go. Right. Let's see if I can do this right. So we're gonna. Guess this is mapping the tablet exactly. All right. Sorry. So I'm gonna come in, and that's immediately gonna be split. This part's gonna go to the detector. First thing is going to be, in fact, I don't even know. Is this volume control before or after the detector? I think it's after. Yeah. So volume knob. Why is this bad? Volume knob. Let's go into input. There's your overload indicators. Input split into the detector. Okay, so now you're going to go to the actual compressor. This is where things are going to happen. So this is going to be the detector input. How do you erase? That's not how you erase. Can I flip this thing over to erase? Oh, yeah, nice. Okay. That's not how. All right. I have no idea how to use these things. Sorry. There's the eraser. That the eraser. There's the eraser. Okay. If I can go down here. I should probably put one of these button things on to make the eraser. All right, there we go. So here's the detector. We come out of the compressor into, there should be a mix control. There's a limiter. I think the limiter is after the mix control. And then there's the output. We'll check this as we go. I'm not 1,000% for sure on here because there's a couple things where you got to worry about where it's going to make a difference. I know this is the nerdy side of things, but there is parts where it's going to make a difference. So come back to that. So here's Intuition Compressor. Let me just go through everything that's on here. Let me pull up a drum set. That's probably the best way. So if I want to play the drum set thing. So I got an instance of Stephen Slate drums just running a Actually, I'm not running a group here. I got a little MIDI file. It's your basic boom bap, boom boom bap. All right, so here's the compressor. So hit play. I'll bring the volume up and down as we need to actually hear anything, but maybe we can do that from the beginning. So here's your regular input volume. See, you got an overload indicator if things go wrong. Double click it to bring it back to unity gain. Click in here to reset the peak numbers. And this number down here will tell you how you have it turned down or turned up. This is your volume position readout. So right off the top, we have zoom button, which really just sends your size for your plugin. Tried a couple different schemes. We tried the scaling and everything. This seemed to be the best way performance-wise. I usually save your preset here, pull up your presets, preset folder, settings. Okay, so you can go to our Discord by clicking this button. Let's try that. I haven't done that in a while. Click that button, you get a Discord invite. Go on there and hassle us and all of our staff. Support docs. It's there. So this isn't going to do much right now. Here you can choose your preset folder path. Tell it where you want to put your presets. So you can, here's your MS encoding, mid-side encoding. You can choose to encode nothing. Just make your regular stereo in, left and right goes to left and right in goes to left and right out. You can encode just the input, or you can encode the output, or you can do both. And the detector's mode for stereo is it going to listen to both together? Either, I should say. That's the default. Or you can tell it just to listen to the left, or just the right, or just the mid side, or mid, or side. So, and then there's FUG mode. So that is FU Glen mode. And what this does is it puts a parallel out of phase signal into the path. And if you ever seen those old compressor tricks where you use the compressor as a gate, this will do that for you. Maybe we'll get into that. But for right now, let's just look at the rest of these controls. So that's the settings. This is your loop time. So when you're trying to understand how this compressor works or how a particular setting works, you can have it play a sample. It comes with this snare. Can loop it. Time. We don't have it on this one. Okay. You can choose what sample you want to use. Here is, oh, here's your loop time right here. So I'll make that loop take longer. Fire. Have the volume. But if you put in your own sample and you don't like it anymore, you can reset it to the default sample. And if I keep going across the top, here's your output. Same thing as the input. Your readout for where the fader presently is down here. This will give you your peak. If it goes red, click to reset the overloads, or click here to reset the peak. Inside here, we have a sidechain button, switch. This will have it listen to the sidechain. So if you have extra channels coming in, so you could have another channel board decided that now it's going to use the wrong monitor. Nice. Wonder if I can switch that. No, I'll just use my mouse. So right now, by default, the compressor listens to itself for the detector input. You can filter that input, but for now, let's just say that you might have, say you have, wow, I'm so, why this jumped monitors, but let me get this thing to monitor one. It says it's on the right one. But why? About this? My mouse over here. Oh, there we go. Okay. Sorry, let me just figure this out. Okay, so let's say we had another track though. So let's say this is the kick drum. Now we could have this go to the detector instead of the input, and that's all that that switch does. So if you choose the sidechain switch, then whatever channel you're sending to the sidechain is going to be what the detector listens to. And in this case, I'm using Reaper. See that this plugin has 4 inputs and 2 outputs, or really has 2 outputs. Reaper can split things up. In the case of Reaper, if I were to have another track being controlled, I would send to it onto channels 3 and 4, at least by default. Let's just do that real quick. So I'm going to turn off this instance of the compressor. I have a bass guitar playing over here. Now, let's say I wanted the kick drum of the drum track to control the bass guitar. So what I'm going to do, let's go to the mix, and I'm just going to solo this kick. So if every time the kick hits, I want the bass to duck, this is how we would do it. So I'm going to turn down the drum, so all we're going to hear is the bass, and I'm going to send to channels 3 and 4 on the bass track, and I'm going to send it pre-fade or post effects because I don't want this volume control to affect this, what we're doing with this send. And it's audio 1 and 2. I'm going to send to 3 and 4 on the new track, on the bass track. And it doesn't actually have those channels yet, but I'm going to add them right here. This is why I use Reaper, but you can use whatever DAW you want. There's a similar way to do this on your whatever DAW you have. I'm going to go to the bass track, and by default, the compressor is going to be listening to itself. Oh, the kick is also playing. Hold on, let me shut that off for now. This is bizarre. Sorry. Something else funny going on here. Sorry about that. Yes, that's our bass. Right now the compressor is listening to itself. Let's say I wanted to listen to that kick. So I'm going to click sidechain. And so when this kick hits, it's going to ignore the bass. But every time this kick hits, you're going to see it duck the bass. It shouldn't happen. Feeling that MIDI from let's get it here. It's definitely not the figure out what's going on here. So I'm sending refader post effects to 4 track. Now this is a MIDI bass. I'm going to render this thing real quick. Hold on. Let me just do that. Got moved again. No. Oh boy. So I'm looking for what normally does is Alt M. Track take effects item says new take. Okay, that's what I want. Now this should just work as it's supposed to. So let's see about that. I think MIDI was getting into it and changing what the bass was playing. So let me turn the compressor back on. Okay, so that's its internal sidechain. Now we're going to listen to the external sidechain. We're going to hear the kick. So now the kick should be controlling what happens to the bass. Little cuts. Make it a little bit more obvious. So you see what that's doing, the side chaining in. If I want to, let's say we want to hear what's actually triggering it. So we click the key listen button. That's the next button here. Now notice this is the bass track where we're hearing the kick drum. That's because this is the sidechain input. This is what's coming from the other track. Here's the bass, but this is the kick. And let's say that you're getting a bunch of weird flubs in the top here. So in the key listen mode, we're going to take this filter, turn it down so that it only hears the low end. Or you could do the opposite. You could this is a high pass and a low pass filter here. See, I only want to listen to the beater part of the kick. So this way it's going to shut off really fast. So this is the signal the detector is going to listen to. That's what this key listen button's for. Now I could have it release a lot faster if I wanted, so it just gets out of the way of the beater. Or you hear that click? You can get your EDM kind of effect going here. So that's that. Hopefully you can tell now. So this was the sidechain tells it to listen to the side chain. Yep, duck in the bass. Key listen lets you hear what it is that the side chain filter's hearing. Show gain reduction, you could actually turn off the gain reduction window. Let me make sure we're back on the compressor. Scope is acting a little bit goofy. So here's you turn off show gain reduction. Let me play these again. Here's what the show gain reduction button does. Just check something really quick. Okay. Nice. Oh yeah, so it's going to Dropbox, that's why. Okay, so that's the side chain, key listen, and show gain reduction. I spent a lot of time on these because these are where these things get complicated. I mean, I think most everybody knows how a regular compressor works and can handle dealing with it. The thing is this freeze button, it'll eventually there's going to be a grid on here so you can actually measure like voltages and everything. This is like the super geeky part that probably nobody really cares about, but later on we will be doing this stuff. There'll be a graph that you can turn on and off so you can actually measure. Not that you guys are necessarily doing oscilloscope measurements with your compressor right now, but you will be able to. So that's what the freeze button does. It'll stop the stuff from moving so you can actually check things. Tempo sync will redraw the screen based on what tempo it's hearing on the from the DAW. So if I turn off, let me turn off this groove here. Here, let me turn that up. Oh, sorry. Okay. This is the Intuition. There we go. Sorry about that, man. I'm scrambled. We're having some major flooding here in Hawaii right now, so. Okay. So let me show you what this tempo sync thing is going to do. This is, I'm going to change my host tempo. Let's see what we got. 120. So I'm going to hit play on here and listen to these drums. Since I got tempo sync on, and it's given me tempo synced redraws. So right now I have it one like half notes. Here's whole measures. So, I mean, this isn't something you could necessarily do with an old school oscilloscope, but because, you know, we're often working with the click track or whatever, it'd be handy to have a tempo synced way to see this. So here's like a 4-measure overview. That's all that is. Here's the limiter. Let me turn the limiter on. It's on soft by default. Let me pull it down. So this is your limiter threshold right here. Now I did a video where I took a bunch of these compressors, put them in soft limit mode and just cranked them. And then I used a match EQ to make an impulse response of a guitar amp sim plugin. And the soft limiter ended up sounding so close to the guitar amp sim. It was kind of mind blowing. So that's how the soft limiter works. The hard limiter is a much more like just full on square wave. But again, I know some of you guys like that. Some people just use this thing to clip their stuff. It'll do it in hard limit mode. And you do have that separate threshold for this. Yeah. So the hard limiter, it's a hard limiter. This is your gain reduction meter right here. Compressor down. Compression. I never know. There's so many moving parts going on here. What am I doing wrong here? This is why I'm recording this thing so I can cut it up later and narrate, because compressing at all. Oh, because the side chain's on. See? There we go. So you can see this graph every time this compressor goes. You can see the attack and release curve here. Watch, I'll make the attack longer. Lump. Lumps. Here's 0. And let's make the release really fast, or make the release really long. You can see what the compressor's action is doing. Here's your gain reduction meter in total. How much? It's like the peak gain reduction is stored here, and you can reset it by clicking on the number. So let's go down to the bottom here. There are some controls over here. We'll look at a little bit later. Actually, let's look at this now. So this is a feed forward mode. That's your regular compressor mode. There's also feedback mode, and there's also bus mode. In bus mode, the release is grayed out. You can't change it. And so is the hold control. Now, this was meant to mirror the action of an SSLG bus compressor. Go ahead. I've done videos on this before using Plug-in Doctor and comparing this. It'll get extremely close, if not identical. As long as you're using the settings that are available on the real SSL, which, the 2-to-1 setting, 4-to-1 setting. I think they got some other settings. And then there's only certain attacks and certain releases that thing has. There's a preset for this. Make sure it's in here. Mix bus G 4-to-1. And this should be 10 milliseconds attack. It's an auto release, 4-to-1 ratio. This should get you really close. Now, remember in the key listen, we do have the high pass and low pass filters. So you can fudge it like a lot of the aftermarket SSLG bus rack plugin, not plugins, but actually rack hardware used to do, where you could have side chains, high pass and low pass filters in there. You can do that yourself on here. So that's bus mode. Feedback mode. Let's go over to this project here. Find some vocals. I know me better than you, and I don't bear the burden of proof. I hope it's true, 'cause I depend on you. Let's get down to the brass tacks. I know the drill and I've got the facts. So everybody, let's get down to the brass tacks. Let's get down to. I need a little sunshine. I need a little love. I need a little sunshine. I need a little sunshine. So feed forward mode, I mean, you can go look this up. I'm sure there's a billion YouTube videos on this. So feedback mode, feed forward mode is what you're probably used to. It's going to do exactly what it says. Attack, hold, and release, threshold ratio, whatever. Feedback mode you're going to see it in more some of your vintage compressors, not all. Like feed forward modes like you would see in a normal VCA compressor. Feedback is going to compare what's already been compressed. So your initial attack may kind of blow through. But it's also kind of the sound of a lot of these older compressors. So
I need a little sunshine. I need a little sunshine. I need a little sunshine.
Crank this down.
Little sunshine.
This is a lot of compression going on right here, right?
Sunshine. I need a little sunshine. I need a little sunshine.
So sometimes a feedback compressor is kind of the that you hear at the beginning of notes. It's blowing right by because that's not even being affected. The very initial attack may not be, but once you're in it, it kind of seesaws around. So let's compare these feedback and feed forward real quick.
I need a little sunshine. I need a little sunshine.
Feedback.
I need a little sunshine. I need a little sunshine. I need a little sunshine.
Or kind of I don't know, somebody might say aggressive, but really it's just doing what it says when you're in feed forward mode. Feedback mode, you could say it's a lot smoother, maybe. You might find yourself on certain applications only ever using feedback mode, though, honestly.
I need a little sunshine. I need a little sunshine. I need a little sunshine. I need a little sunshine.
Some people say they hear the pumping more on feedback compressors. I hear it more on feed forward compressors. I find with feedback compressors, once things start compressing, it's kind of a subtle thing. It kind of sits almost like somebody standing on the volume control, whereas the feed forward compressor is somebody accurately like yanking and pushing on that volume control at all times. And like we said before, bus mode is to emulate the auto release of a SSLG bus compressor. This line right here tells you the values of critical parameters. So your threshold, your ratio, punch control, we'll get to that. Attack, hold, release, the knee size, and look ahead if any. This thing can do, if this is set to 0, it says 0 latency. And your RMS windowing time. Let's get back down to threshold. Let me get back to these drums. It's going to be a little bit easier to do, I think. If I need to show just the snare, I've got the trigger one. Mix. Sounds like. But you already know what the threshold control does, right? If this is the threshold control determines where the compressor action is going to start depending on the input volume or input gain, input level. So if the threshold's all the way up at 0 dBFS, probably not going to do anything. But as I start pulling it down, pull it off the screen. You now have it under these peaks. And right now, again, so I know there's just millions of different things going on at once, but this compressor is responding to the peak. This is no RMS anything right now. This is the peak signal. So when I put this compressor below the peak, it starts doing something. See right here even. Okay, so you know what the threshold is. Ratio is the amount. This is set right now at 4:1. So again, maybe go watch a YouTube video if you don't know what the ratio does. This is by however many dB. How many dB does it need to exceed the threshold value before it goes up by 1 dB? That's the ratio. So you can have infinity to 1 hard limiter. Now in this case, it's not quite a brick wall limiter because we do have some attack time right here, right? If I turn the attack to 0, it's just a hard limiter. In fact, I turn the release to 0 and really make a nasty limiter. We also have negative ratios. Okay, so I'm going to turn this down because this could go horrifically awry. In this case, you got an expander. There's some tricks you could do with this. In general, I don't think you guys are going to be using it that way. We've got other plugins that are better to use for gates and things like that. But just in case you're crazy enough, it does do ratios lower than 1. Right, now here's the knee size. This is the size of the slope. So right now, this is a hard knee. Let's go back to... So right now, the compressor is set. Here's a linear transfer function. So here's level in, here's level out, and here's your increasing level. If it's linear, it's just gonna go straight up there, right? It's just gonna be a perfect diagonal curve. Now let's say this is your compressor curve. It goes up to a certain amount. Let's make the threshold right here. Let's say this is the threshold line. I didn't want that thing to be that fat, but whatever. Once it hits the threshold, now you start... Wow, that's not cool. Once it goes past the threshold, you start your compression. Now, if this were a softer knee, you would be going up the line just as usual, but a little bit before the threshold is crossed, you would start compressing. And a little bit after, before you got to your full compression. This is a horrible drawing of it. Go Google soft knee compressor or something. That's my drawing. That's the knee control. So you can set this however you want. I generally use a hard knee setting, unless it's speech. Sometimes when people are talking, I'll use a pretty big knee. Okay, punch control. Here's where it gets goofy. So I'm gonna let's get the pressure up. Okay, you gotta turn on the punch control. If you see, I guess we could tempo sync this. Look at the shape of the compressor right here. Okay. The punch control. Down. It is back at 0. What the punch control does effectively, not exactly, but effectively, is it lets a certain amount of the signal through before it starts compressing. It's not the same thing as attack. Let me show you attack. In some cases, it may seem to have the same amount of effect, but I could make my attack time kind of long 15 milliseconds, but here's with the punch control off. Here's a 15 millisecond attack. You see that punch is letting 15 milliseconds through, but the attack is still taking 15 milliseconds to actually happen. Okay, it's a little bit confusing. Play around with it. You'll understand it a little bit better. Next is look ahead, and this is depending on how your DAW's plug-in delay compensation works. This is perfectly compensated for as long as your DAW isn't made to mess things up. And there are cases where it is, so be aware. But if your DAW has proper plug-in delay compensation, no matter where you turn this look ahead, it's gonna still play at the right time. Let me show you what it does though. This is gonna be way bigger on like a regular bass guitar where that pick note keeps coming through on you. But in this case, let me just show you on the snare. Tempo sync this. Okay, so that we haven't reached our full compression setting until after this peak has already gone by, right? So even if I put it at 0, still getting a little bit through. So I'm going to change my look ahead. So it's already happening. Right? I know this picture looks weird, but I promise you this is going to be at the actual right time. That's your look ahead. You can actually have the compressor start earlier than you can have the compressor's action applied earlier than the audio would indicate. I hope I'm making sense of this. The detector's listening to the signal and applying it ahead of time to what the audio would be. So this one obviously won't work in real time. This only works when you're mixing. Here's the RMS control. Again, let's look at the snare. Do your classic snare setting, 25 and 250-ish. Now, if I change this RMS window, you can say it's more musical to listen. You know, like you'd have the 300, you know, the integrated voice thing. I'm not trying to make a VU meter here, but you make it a little bit more how the ear hears instead of just peaks. Peaks may not always work for you. I tend to leave it in peak because I want the compressor to do exactly what I'm telling it to do, but you may not like the effects. You might dial in a little bit of RMS time. This is or RMS windowing. This is just gonna take an accumulation of energy before the detector says that it's at a certain level. So the level what the detector's seeing is gonna depend on this RMS setting here. 0 again just makes it peak. Let's do a super fast attack and release. So now we got a hard limiter. You notice if I turn the RMS up, all of a sudden it's the very peaks are getting through again. So that's that. Now your attack, hold, and release. I hope those are explanatory. Attack will tell you how long does the full compression happen after the threshold's exceeded. Again, I'll put the snare on. So here's 0. It's like 40 milliseconds, 20 milliseconds. See how it takes a little while before it happens? And the release is how long does it take to get back after the signal's gone back under the threshold. See, now it's compressing for a lot longer. It's kind of your classic snare sound, right? And a hold control is going to force the compressor to stay squishing for whatever that value is after the attack time happens, but before the release time happens. So as soon as the signal goes back under the threshold, the hold control takes over, and that distance has to play. Is this a members only video or is this lesson comped? I don't know. No, this wouldn't be a members only video. I don't know. Oh, is this, yeah, I don't have, yeah, subscribe to our Patreon and hear me ramble for an hour and a video that should have taken me 10 minutes to make. Yep. So that's the hold control. So we make a ridiculous hold time. Look, if you're going to do EDM stuff with drums and bass, you may just put a trigger in and use this to do your ducking. Just have that trigger a pulse so you know how long it is every single time. If you want to be in nuts and put them in by hand, which I see people do, then use the hold control so you can vary the time that that's going to be. And 1 second. It's getting busy today. Okay, so where were we? Okay, so release time, we already did that. We did, yeah, we did show the release. Mix is for like doing parallel compression. Let me put the drum set in for that, actually. So let's say I'm squishing the crap out of this thing. So mix control let a certain amount back in. Makeup gain. Here's the problem. So notice that the makeup gain is for the mix control, right? So this only affects the compressed audio. So that this is important just so you know the signal path. So that's your parallel. That's what your mix control supports for making parallel compression. Okay, let me turn that off. Turn this back to 100. And then we also have automatic gain compensation. I turn down the threshold. Getting louder, right? Take the volt down. There's only so much that the automatic gain compensation can do, but limiter again, soft, hard, or off. Turn on soft limiting. Ratio. Route. Soft control. It's mellow. If I put it on hard, you'll hear that square wave rectification, right? You can just see it clipping right off the top. Oh, go back to feed forward mode too, so you're really hearing this. I think most of our controls. Can I put in an FU blend mode? Yeah. Not sure if I can do that here. Let's go to settings. Oh, well, it's going to completely cancel itself out. That's good. I'll have to have a different compressor. Yeah, sorry, it's getting busy over here. I'm gonna do some more of this recording later so I can put this together, and hopefully it'll be a lot more coherent. But thanks for coming in and checking this out. This is eventually I'll turn this into a manual, so because I know there's a lot of controls here. Your regular compressor controls are right here though. There's threshold, ratio, maybe you see RMS sometimes, attack and release. Then you're pretty set. I didn't touch on, because it's just getting too late, I didn't touch on the oscilloscope functions, but let me tell you, if you really want to know what your compressor is doing, so in fact, let's turn that on. Let me just show you real quick. You can compare your input to your output signal. Let's do a super fast attack. Be on the top, just on the bottom. If we need, so you can see what this is doing to it. If you want to see it, maybe clipping the whole front off of this thing. Head. You can compare like how different the shapes are. It used to drive me nuts because a lot of these like school textbooks and stuff that show compressors, they'll show a picture of a waveform before and after a compressor, but it's kind of tricky on plugins to do. So we really wanted to make sure we could show that. And you can kind of move things around the same way as you would do on a dual trace oscilloscope, for instance. So I can put them back together. So you can see the gray waveform is the original, the white waveform is the compressor's output. Change the scaling. So let me take it out of tempo sync mode. You can zoom in and out same way you would on an oscilloscope. Time. So like I said, we're going to have some grids later on, so you can actually measure with this thing. You do a horizontal position, so you can move it around. You can make them separate than each other, so you can see one leading or lagging in case there's some delay of some sort. And also have it only trigger if something happens. So now you need to exceed the threshold before it'll redraw. This can be really handy when you're like comparing what you're doing to a snare, for instance, and you're not using the tempo sync mode. If you don't want it on the left-hand side of the screen like this, anyway, that's this compressor for now. I'm going to do a whole lot more on this later on, and yeah, it's almost an hour, and really I probably had about 10 minutes worth of stuff in here. That's why the real YouTube channels get paid the big bucks, because they make everything coherent and they spend all their time editing the stuff. But I got to get out of here because I'm not